benefits of open landscape and cellular spaces. Yesterday in my talk, I don't know how many of you were there. Peter? Okay, so so yesterday in my talk, I was kind of saying that like we need both teaching and learning, and it's not that in the open landscape you don't have closed off spaces. So today I'm going to go a little bit more into when we should use the different areas. So first a little bit about why verbal communication is in center of the way we educate. And because you guys aren't educators, I'm not going to go into detail, so it's the very broad strokes, right? We have a classroom here. Does this work? Yeah, we have a classroom here, church here. They look very similar, and this person is doing the preaching. And that's a very, very good way of educating before you had any kind of prints, any kind of written language. It was kind of the only way of educating. And you could say the pedagogy that kind of follows this. This is a quote from a Swedish teacher manual back in the day. Let me just find it. It goes hand in hand with this kind of architecture, because already back then they knew how to build buildings that supported what we want to do. So the manual states, in case of trouble in class, do not hold any speech. Remember, no speech. Do not say anything. Just look in the direction where the source of the trouble seems to be located. Look at him, preferably with a little interruption of the lesson. If this does not help, look again. Then take out a notebook and write a little in it. It doesn't matter what you write. So this is the thoughts behind this kind of architecture, and I'm sure it was pretty effective. It was pretty effective even when I went to school. In the 70s, 60s, 70s, I don't know, that was before my time, that there was this big revolution about love, and we should all be social, and we shouldn't have these authority figures that could just look at us and look again and write random things in a notebook. So we wanted to loosen it up and be more social and, interact a little bit more. So we had what they back then called open plan schools, which basically mean a big open space, no change pretty much in the pedagogy that went on. So now we just had, in a big open space like this, we had like 4 lectures going on next to each other. And you as well as I would know that would be quite chaotic, with 4 speakers just going on it at the same time, and who then is the authority to look at the one speaking when you're supposed to speak. So that kind of ruined it for open plan, gave it a bad rep. And we went back to just developing the individual classroom. Here we only have one authoritative figure. One person has the final word. So it's easier to develop this space because you don't have to really, coordinate with that many people. And you can make it very personal. You can make it into kind of what fits you. And if you're lucky and some of you guys have been by, you can even have group work without it being too loud. So that's what we have in most of our schools today. Classrooms in different variations. I think it's fit to talk about when cellular spaces is appropriate. This little boy here in Korea, I don't think is gaining too much out of this lesson, for instance. And it might be because it's not too interesting, because most of them don't seem to be looking at that authoritative figure. Here is a different sort of cellular spaces in a bigger open environment from UTS in Sydney. So cellular spaces, I believe, should be used mainly for loud activities. Because of course, if we're trying to have a collaborative community, we can't have people playing music or doing theater right next to us, or cooking and banging pots, hammering, sewing, these kind of things, I think are very appropriate to put in a specific designated area. Then you can also be sure that you have the utensils that you need for this kind of activity. Meetings, also a very good idea to put them into a closed space, because it doesn't really involve the rest of us. So why should they be there in the middle of everything, having their little meeting when we can't even join? So I think meetings that requires a high level of concentration and focus around one group is also a good idea to take away from the large open spaces. And again, one of these cellular spaces from UTS, as you can see, they've also tried to make a meeting room where you are your own group, you're not disturbing the others, but at the same time you're not totally excluded from the community, which can be a very good idea. One of the reasons I like to use the word cellular spaces instead of classrooms or closed spaces, it's two things. Classrooms give us an idea of, most of us get an image of a certain physical setup and about 60 square meters in our head, and we have like an idea of exactly the activity that should go on in there. If I say closed spaces, I kind of rule out I kind of rule out spaces like this that are kind of semi-open. And at the same time, cellular spaces within math and biology, which is not exactly my turf, is talking about how it's connected to a bigger whole. It's not something that you can take away and it functions on its own. It is actually connected to more. And I think that's a very important point as well. If you have introductions or lectures, especially to a large group of people, it can also, depending on, like, you could do it like, you know, nowadays they even have silent discos. So I mean, we could have a lecture where you all had your headphones and I could stand here and I didn't have to talk so loud and we wouldn't disturb anybody. But I think we're a few years away from this kind of activities in school. So usually we either talk louder because we have to reach all these meters down to the furthest corner, or we have a speaking system that is some kind of a technical system that broadcasts it all over the place. So that's also a good idea to kind of remove from the common activity area. If you have smaller groups, however, as you see here, that's a small introduction room at a school, and it's, again, there's no door, it's not really closed off, but it is kind of taken away from where the other people are working, and the sound shouldn't travel too much. And here another example, a little bit more open, and here there's even people in it, and it's in Sweden even, and they are having their little introduction group session in a more open environment. And if you keep your eyes on that corner, you can see that they are here now, and that is the larger area that they're placed in. So in the open learning landscape, we have a lot of activities. So in the open learning landscape, we have a lot of activities going on, and most of them, and here we have very different age groups. We have a primary school and a university. And but as you can see, especially in the university setting, we have some people working on their own, some people talking a little bit. Maybe some of them are kind of working together, supporting each other, but actually working on their own projects. But it can be nice to ask somebody else, what do you think, does this work if I want to present it like this? Or, hey, how was that formula, once again, that he was talking about? And so for individual work, I don't believe that we need to exclude people into small closed-off places. As you see here, examples of people concentrating in very different ways in open spaces. A little corner here, a little own space in the middle of a bigger space. Here somebody found a good and cozy area, and here a boy who I think likes the light, or maybe, I don't know, the only place he could lie down, there wasn't a floor. I'm not sure. But for individual work, most of us can actually find, if the surrounding area isn't too loud in the sounds and isn't too like intrusive, we can find our own personal space to sit and concentrate, especially if the things that we're reading are very intriguing. And for collaboration, there's no doubt in my mind that we need to be together. It's very hard to collaborate with people that you're not together with. And in schools, if you have a traditional classroom, the kids might have somebody to be together with, but the teacher's all on her own. And it's usually a female, and females especially likes to talk and hear their own voice talking, and they can talk, and they also actually like to be really social. So why would we seclude them by themselves with all these children? Why wouldn't we let them interact and work together with other adults? I'm pretty sure it goes for most of you here. I know it goes very much for me, that the way I develop and become better at my job is by collaborating with other adults who are interested in the same field that I am and are working also with other adults, and we're talking and we're collaborating and we're exchanging ideas. So for collaboration, different diverse areas can be a very good place to be, because you always have somebody that you can ask, you can observe, you can mirror. And I showed this yesterday, but I think it's two very good pictures. And the biggest problem for presenters like us, and maybe also for some architects, because they also like to show pictures of their work with open spaces, is that they're so hard to photograph. How do you get all of that into one picture? And here are two schools where we managed to do it. And basically, I think it's very simple, that these open learning landscapes are for providing more possibilities for the professionals that work in them. And if these professionals that work in them choose to, because I mean, this is a still photo, so basically we don't know if they're going to sit there for 45 minutes and listen to a teacher who's talking. But if they choose to do that, and they're the professional pedagogues, I think we should give them the freedom to choose to do that. I don't think we should give them the possibility of only doing that. But it's not until we give them environments where they can actually change their behavior that we give them a possibility to explore their profession. And I think that's all I have. Yeah.